Hello, everyone, and welcome to probably the most important lesson of Algebra 1. Yes, there is some pressure involved here because this leads to a lot of stuff in the future. And I'm not just talking Algebra 1. It is showing up again in Algebra 1, but I'm talking geometry, I'm talking Algebra 2, and beyond. So you want to understand factoring. Okay, we're going to spend 3 lessons on it. Most people get to the end of this notes and they are overwhelmed. However, with some practice, this becomes a pretty easy problems, okay? So here we go. Starting with general form of a quadratic. Remember, a quadratic being biggest exponent is 2, and you see that there, ax squared plus bx plus c. It's a lot of letters, but a, b, and c are numbers or coefficients, okay? So that's all those are. And then we're going to move on to something that we did in the last couple lessons. Multiply x plus 4 times x plus 3. All right. Let's scroll down here a little bit. So x times x is x squared. Again, I'm going to go very quick through this. X times 3 is 3x. 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times 3 is 12. And so I put my middle terms together. I get x squared plus 7x plus 12. Notice that my result, just circled there, resulting polynomial is in general form, right? A equals 1, B equals 7, and C equals 12. If you look back at the title of the notes, it says factoring when A equals 1. That's what I'm talking about. You're going to have a lot of x squareds starting your problems, okay? Now, how did we get the middle term? To get the middle term, we multiplied the outer terms, right? And the inner terms of each binomial. And then what did we do with those two? We added them together. And I'm writing this in all caps because I want that to stand out. How did we get the last terms? We multiplied the last terms of each binomial. These are extremely important. You're going to need to know those. There's going to be a pattern that's developed with those, giving you a little foreshadowing here. Let's try another one and see if the same thing happens. Well, you don't know what the same thing is yet, but x times x, x squared, x times 2 is 2x, negative 5 times x is negative 5x, negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Combine my like terms, x squared minus 3x minus 10. Notice these things below. It's very closely tied to what we're doing today. What are the last terms of each binomial? So I'm talking about here, negative 5 and 2. Those are the last terms, right? What is the sum of those terms? What's negative 5 plus 2? Well, negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. Where do we see negative 3? Isn't that the middle term? Okay. What is the product of negative 5 and 2? So I multiply negative 5 times 2, I get negative 10, right? Where do we see that product? Oh, look, there it is. It's the last term of my answer. Does that always work, or is that just coincidence? You know the answer to that, but let's try it just to show one more time. X times x, x squared, x times negative 8, negative 8x, negative 1 times x, negative 1x, negative 1 times negative 8 is positive 8. So I combine, I get x squared, negative 8, negative 1 makes negative 9x, negative 8 or positive 8 is what's left. Okay, the last terms is what we're looking at. So negative 1 and negative 8 is negative 1 plus negative 8, negative 9, and it matches the middle term. Negative 1 times negative 8 is positive 8, and that matches the last term. Did it work? Sure did. Okay. There's patterns developing. Hopefully you're noticing them. Let's go to the back. If you haven't noticed them, I'm going to spell them out for you right here. So we are now going to be doing what we did the last couple of lessons, which was FOIL in reverse. This is called factor. So factor x squared plus 7x plus 12. That's what you're going to see. Now, you're not going to see all these words after it. You're just going to have factor that, and you should know what to do. But all these words are explaining the process and the shortcuts and why the shortcuts work. That's the key, why they work. All right, we want to find two binomials that, when multiplied together, give me the trinomial above, the x squared plus 7x plus 12. The first terms of the binomials must be x and x, have to be. That's the only combination that multiplies to give you x squared. So we've got to have x times x. Now that's only true when a equals 1. So that's only true today. Tomorrow we're going to change to a different situation, and that's going to change the process a little bit. But for right now, the first terms of the binomials must be x and x. I'm going to kind of go out of order here. I'm going to go down here to the very bottom. It says write these with the first terms as the product of the two binomials. What I've just said is, I know that I'm having two binomials, so I'm going to set it up like that. The first terms in those binomials have to be x and x. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now we got to get the last terms, right? To do this, we want to find two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7. Okay, that's what you're going to be doing repeatedly for the next several years, probably, when you see these types of problems. Why multiply to 12 and add to 7? Kind of talked about it on the front. Since the last term, 12, comes from the product of the last terms of the binomials, we are looking for those two numbers that multiply, told you there's that word again, to 12. Since the middle term, 7x, comes from the sum of the outer terms and the inner terms of the two binomials, we are looking for two numbers that add, sum means add, to 7. What are those numbers? Hopefully you saw it and you got 3 and 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 plus 4 is 7. Now just write those numbers with the first terms that were already on the line and you have your answer. So 3 is positive, so I'm going to put plus 3. 4 is positive, so I'm going to put plus 4. There's your answer. If I would FOIL that, I would end up right back here. Okay, so those are interchangeable. Those mean the same thing. Okay. Now, before we do some practice problems, there is a common problem that comes up. See it happen every year. What if, and I hear, this is the question I get, I can't find the two numbers. Or it's not even a question, it's just a statement. But people will say, I can't find the two numbers that make this true. Well, I'm not helping you with that. You have to know how to get out of that situation. Here's how you do it. Find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to negative 10. Some of you are like, I already know it. I got the answer. I know what they are. But if you don't, and there will be times when you don't, here's what you do. By the way, when I say find two numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to negative 10, essentially what I'm asking you to do is this. Okay, those are actually the same type of question. So what we're going to do is I'm going to list the factor pairs. Factor pairs are two numbers that multiply to give me a number. Which number of the two, negative 10 or negative 24, do we want to multiply to? Negative 24, right? So I'm going to list the factor pairs of negative 24. So I'm going to list them in pairs. So 1 and 24. But before I do anything else, I do have to understand that it has to be negative 24. 1 and 24 makes positive 24. That is a difference. I have to put a negative in there. To save me some extra factors, I can look at and be kind of clever with this. They have to add to be negative, right? Well, if they have to add to be negative, that means the larger factor has to be negative, right? If you're adding two numbers and the larger one's negative, the answer is negative. So I know I can put my negative with the larger number. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. 2, does 2 make go into 24? Yes, 12 times. The negative goes on the larger one this time. 3 goes into 24 8 times, right? So that would be negative 8. 4 goes into 24 6 times. The larger number gets the negative. 5 does not go in. once you start repeating numbers, so if you go to 6, see I'm repeating a number here, I'm done. Don't list it more than once. Now you want to look for the pair that adds to -10. 1 plus -24 does not. 2 plus -12 is -10. There's my combo. Okay, so 2 and -12 would be my two numbers. So you'd write x plus 2, x minus 12. That is going to get you unstuck. Just sitting there trying to think of them will not get you unstuck very often. Okay. For each of these, I'm going to start it. What I would do is pause and try them yourself once you feel comfortable. But essentially what I need to do is I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to 8. I know my first terms are x and x. Hopefully you got it. That would be 3 and 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 times 5 is 15. Next one. Notice the -21. So I need two numbers that multiply to -21 and add to 4. Well, that would be 7 and -3. 7 plus -3 is +4. Got to make sure that negative's in the right spot. I'll see a lot of people write x minus 7, x plus 3. That would be wrong. Another way of writing this answer and be correct would be x minus 3, x plus 7. The order doesn't matter, but which number has the negative does. Hope that makes sense. Next one. A lot of people look at this one and say, oh, look, there's two negatives. That means both of these are going to be negative. No, it doesn't. If your product is negative, that means you're going to have one positive and one negative. Okay, you saw that back here. Negative product, one positive and one negative, right? Okay, so two numbers that multiply to -24 and add to -5. I'm actually going to use my work up here. See it right there, 3 and -8 makes -5, so x plus 3, x minus 8. And again, you could write x minus 8, x plus 3, and be fine. Number 4, also a tricky one because it looks like it should be one positive, one negative. It's not. If you have a positive C value, a positive product, the only way to get a positive number by multiplying is to have the same sign. So they can either be both positive or they could be both negative. In this case, they both have to be negative. Okay, why both negative? Because they have to add to be negative. I can't get two positive numbers to add to be negative, but I can get two negative numbers to add to be negative. So I know that these both have to be negative. So what are they? -8 and -2. 5. People aren't used to the product being smaller than the sum. When you have the product smaller than the sum, more than likely you're using 1, and in this case you are. 1 and 9, right? 1 and 9 multiplies to 9. 1 plus 9 is 10. Last one, two numbers that multiply to -6 and add to -1. I will see -6 and 1 as an answer. I will see 2 and I will see just some interesting answers here. Make sure multiply to -6 and add to -1. That would be -3 and +2. -3 times 2 is -6. -3 plus 2 is -1. Okay, you will get good at this. If not, I'm going to force you to get good at this. You will get to the point where hopefully you can do about 20 of these problems in about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, so we are going to move on to harder stuff, which does not apply. I mean, it'll take more time on the harder ones, but on these here, you've got to be able to do this before you can really move on. So that's the end. Let me know if you have any questions.